What's happening, everybody? This is Hayden Adams with A Designer Who Codes. In this project, we're going to build a full screen landing page. We'll start with the top using Hello World, putting a picture at the very top, and then we'll add some information down below, reversed out, and then we'll finish with a 3-column design at the bottom. And the best part, it is 100% completely responsive, courtesy of Bootstrap 5. And with that, let's get started. All right, so to get started, I'm gonna head over to the doc section of Get Bootstrap, and I'm gonna head down and I'm gonna copy and paste the starter template. Now, the one thing I did differently versus the default starter template is I do have a link to a custom CSS file. And if I head over to custom, let me flip flop these two. If I just type in body, all this one will do if I just do a quick test, if I say the word purple, boom, the live server kicks into purple. So we will write some code in addition to leveraging the power of Bootstrap. Let's get rid of that purple color. So to start out with, I'm going to start the index page. And I'm going to head down to where it says body. And after the body section, I'm going to build in that full screen image. And also, if you are following along, what I do also have is, if I can find my setup, is I also brought in a background image.jpg, which we're going to use with this cool picture as our full screen background image, and then add the text as we go along. There we go. So inside the body, what I want to do is I want to first add a masthead. So I'm going to type the word div class equals masthead. That's what I like to use for the term for my full screen picture. And I'm also going to bring in a style and do an inline CSS. I'll also close the div to make sure I do not mess that up. There we go. Now, if we go back to this div and masthead, if I go inside this div tag, what I want to do is indent, and I'm going to say style. I want to write an inline style because I want to maybe change this picture down the road if I have more pictures. So I'm going to say background dash image, and I'm writing CSS inline colon URL, and then I'll add the quotes, open and close, add a semicolon to the end. In that URL, what I will do is, since I have the picture, I'll put single quotes and say period/images, and then background image. And now when I save it, what's going to happen is not too much. We don't really have anything in that div. If we type the word test, for example, we will see is that color show up with that picture as the background. However, we haven't stylized the masthead at all. So right now it's just this empty picture sitting within the word test. We'll come back in a second and add the CSS. Let's add the rest of the HTML first. So after the word test, making sure I'm indenting properly, I'm going to say a couple things. I'll say div class, and I'll say color overlay. This is an optional element we can use within our CSS. And I'm going to bring in the power of flex to make sure I create a vertical height image to push the picture down and also to push the text in the middle. I'm going to say deflex, and I'm going to say justify content center and align items. If I could spell it properly, align items center. What this will do, and I'll come back and I'll show this to you once we get this all set up to go, is the justify content center justifies it in the center, and align item center vertically centers it so our text is right in the middle of the design. Next, what I want to do is add some information. So I'll open and close this div, and then what I'll do is I'm going to move Hello World up over here so we bring back our H1. There we go. And what I'm going to do is inside this, oh, I forgot one extra thing. Let me cut this H1, not copy it. I'm going to bring them right back. I'm going to say div class, and we'll say single call. Now, why I use the single call is I don't want my text to go too far across the page. So I'll single call it with the Bootstrap container, and I'll set the text center. So I'm just going to have more of a title and description factor right here. Now when I open and close this, now I'm going to paste hello world. I'm going to say p class, and we'll say lead. And in this lead, I'm going to say strong. And in this strong, I'm going to type in the word lorem and just maybe have about a sentence of information. And now when I save this, what I get is hello world in the middle. This looks good, but we have to pull the picture down to the bottom of the page. We have the HTML all set to go. So now let's come over to our CSS and make this really, really shine. So in our CSS file, I'm going to say first class masthead. And in here, I'll say background size cover. The magic's going to happen when I say min height. Now I use the word min height because I never like the word height because that really implies that I'm locking my site down. If you have more text, the min height will just grow as more text shows up. I'm going to say min height 90 VH. That's vertical height. Now when I save this, whoa, it's starting to look like a cool picture. Now we have the picture showing up. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to say position is going to be relative in this design because we're going to use an absolute after that. And we'll say color is going to be white. I'm going to move all the text to white. Now, yes, it is hard to read in this very sense right here, but we're going to use the color overlay to darken the picture. And this is an obscure looking, but if I have it more of this size, now we see the full picture show up on that cover, and it's really showing up a lot more stronger as it turns to 90% vertical height. If you want to go fully to the bottom, you can hit 90 to 100, not 1000. Now the picture becomes a full screen vertical height. The reason why I like 90 vertical height is I want to be able to see a little bit of information just at the bottom. So I might type in 90 or 95, but I'm going to keep 90 so we have a little bit of information showing right at the very bottom. So I still consider this full screen, even though there's just a little bit of a 10% missing right there. All right, let's head back to this design. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my H1 a little stronger because I like it much more powerful on the screen. So I'll say H1 font size. Let's try a 3 rem. See what it looks like. Looks a little better with our H1 hello world. Just want to make a little extra pop to that design. The next after the H1 is our color overlay. So what I'm going to do, actually, let's put it after the masthead. I'll say color overlay. Is I'm going to say position absolute. So again, we can use the absolute because we have the parent being relative. After position absolute, I'm going to say background color, and now I'm going to give it a color. So if I just say black, what's going to happen is it's just going to go to black, which doesn't really work very well. Also, you'll note that this box is only as big as the text information. That doesn't really suit us very well. So let's add a width of 100% and a height of 100%, essentially filling the parent, which is 90 VH. So what I'll do is I'm going to say height 100%. What's going to do is I'm going to take care of that. And also note how the text sits in the middle of this design vertically and in theory horizontally with hello world, for example. Then I'll say width 100%. And when I save it, now, of course, it turns to black, the text is in the middle, and we can't see the background. So let's add RGBA to this design, which is now inherently adding an alpha or a transparency. 0, 0 is black, comma, I used 0.4 when I built this earlier. And it's a little strong, so I might add a 0.5 to this design. Why is it not turning RGBA 0, 0? Oh, for some reason I typed RBG, it should be RGB. There it goes, turned yellow, looking much better. Now when I kick it in, it made a much darker background. Again, this is a little hard to see because most people don't view websites in this extreme horizontal format. What we'll really see is something like this. Hello world with the picture dark in the background. If you have a different picture, you can always change this to be darker. 0.9 is almost 100%. So it's a much darker photograph, or if we go like 0.75, you can now see the picture through the dark background, or if you have a much darker picture in general, you can go much lighter and drop in the 0.1. Vice versa, if you want white to your design, I could say RGBA 255, 255, 255, and that would be a white transparency. So for this design, I found 0.4 to be working successfully in this design. hello world. We're looking good. The last piece I want to type in before I go too much further back into the HTML is I want to type in single call. And what the single call does, if I type in single, I've always written capital C for this, but I've always done color dash overlay. Call me crazy, I should keep it consistent, but that's just the way I roll sometimes. Single call, if I say max width of 750, the reason why I like 750 in this design is that this one's okay to read when it comes to across the page, but if someone does have their browser open really far across the page, the readability gets hard past a certain distance. And I've always loved 750 because it's about 2/3 the size of a modern day browser. So what I'll do is I'll say max with 750, but if I save this, there we go. And also the power of the container is it sits in the middle of the page. What I will also do to ensure it does sit in the middle is I will say margin 0 auto. Now we have text center for this situation right here, but if it wasn't, the text would be all the way to the left-hand side, sitting 750 pixels from the left. We just happen to have it, but in general, I'll always type margin auto. So in the future, if I didn't have text center, then the margin auto would kick into gear for single call. This looks nice and clean. Hello world, the text as well. What I also want to add to this design is a button I can click on to say learn more, to contact, as more of a basic landing page would actually have. So now we've typed our code in, the CSS for right now. Let's head back to our index. And after this strong P tag, what I'm going to also add to this design is an href. We'll just type in a $ for right now. And the class we're going to use is a Bootstrap button. So we'll type btn and btn outline light. And in here, I'll say learn more. For my design as well, I'm also going to strong this guy as well and drop it in. And now I have a learn more. So if I wanted someone to come to this page to learn more and go somewhere else, this would be the information and I could learn more. The next section I want to work on now is down here in this bottom part and add a little bit more of a sub information or an H2 or a paragraph. And then I will add the 3 columns down to the bottom. So let's head back to our HTML right down here. And we don't need to be inside the masthead any longer. So I'm going to go outside the masthead. I have to type the word test just to make sure nothing goes crazy, and the word test is right here. If I was inside the div, what it would look like, if I save this, was the word test would go right up to the top because that absolute situation going on inside the masthead. Let's take the word test out and put the word test there, and let's take it out. We'll set up a main section, and after the main, we're going to add a div class equals dark BG. As we're going to make a dark background, we'll say PY5 to add some padding to this design. And inside this design, we're going to add a single call. So a div class, and we'll say single. For me, I do capital C for call, and we'll add a container to this because once it gets smaller, the container kicks in for the breakpoints. In this section, what we'll do is we'll add a P. And I like to use the word class lead to this design to mimic above here, as that's a class inside of Bootstrap to make the type a little bit bigger, but still be a paragraph. So if I type P class, I already have it, P class lead, return key, and I have the lorem with some extensions, so I'll drop this in. And for me, again, I'm pretty happy with the length of it. So we'll just say save. Now what happens is the text is sitting here, but we haven't added the CSS class to dark BG. And it's looking pretty good. Again, I like the way it lines up with that 750 pixels up and down the page. And if we go back and forth, it's 100% responsive, kicking in back and forth as it gets smaller regarding the mobile environment. So if we head to our custom CSS, we're going to change or actually add that dark BG. So after the single call, I'm going to say dark BG. And again, I'm not only following my own rules. Literally, it should probably be lowercase g, but since that's the same word, I did capital B, capital G. Background color, we're going to, and I found 363636 to work for a nice dark kind of cool color. and we'll save. And my color is going to be white. And when I save it, now what happens is it looks much stronger. So we have this white on dark background, and we have this dark background with white type. A nice way to contrast back and forth. And so far it's looking pretty good. The one thing I noticed though is that when it comes to a mobile environment, this top design is really, really tall. And on a mobile site, height is at a premium. So what I like to do is I like to drop my mobile site down. And even though it is full screen on desktop and tablet, unless I really need this full screen picture, I like to preserve one, the ratio, and two, also have the picture lend itself to be at the top and the text to show up as much as possible when it comes to a mobile environment. So I'm going to add a media query to this design, and we'll adjust the masthead. I was going to say masthead and media query and almost got them backwards. So we'll say at media, and the max width we're going to say is 768. That's going to be more for the tablet size and below. And inside here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the masthead and the H1. So we'll say masthead, open and close this. The min height will now be 50 vertical height, just to drop it down a little bit. And now what happens here is when it goes beyond a certain size, notice how it drops down from 90 to 50. Again, I want to preserve as much space as I can. And also that 50 vertical height also shows the picture still, well, 90 became more of a vertical picture. And I want to use that ratio of distance from about a 1-to-1 or so for that still almost vertically 100% in theory on the mobile design. What I'll also do is on the H1, I'll also add a font size just to drop it a little bit smaller. And this is actually courtesy of Bootstrap, and I love this design. Actually, the power of the calc is I'm going to say 1.525 rem plus 3.3, not 33, vertical width. So this actually measures the distance of the browser, and it actually adjusts the font bigger or smaller. How awesome is that? I just love that they have responsive typography. So I'm going to say, you know what? Let's bring it into Edition while still keeping Hello World really big on the page. On a mobile site, it can just shrink just a little bit. So let's go back to this annoyingly large 90 for right now, and we'll drop it up in that direction. We have the type sitting pretty darn good here. So the last part is to create a 3-column approach using our Bootstrap features inside of Bootstrap 5. So if we scroll down here, I'm still going to be inside the main. So inside of main, but outside of our dark BG, what I'm going to do is type a new section. If I want to return key a couple of times just to be in the right position, from here I'm going to add a classic container. So I'll say div class container. Container is great because in Bootstrap it contains all the breakpoints. And I'll say div, whoa, that's not good. Div class row to set up our column design. And I'll also add inside the row as a PY or padding top and bottom, this time of 4. And inside of here, we're going to add our 3 columns. So I'll say div class, and I'll say call 12 because in Bootstrap 5, it is mobile first. And then I'll say call -md is going to be 4. Which means the small will be inherently the 12 column / a full width. And then once it hits the medium, we'll go 3 column, 12 divided by 3 is 4. And let's test this theory out. Let's add the word test. What I like to do is copy and paste this 3 times. Test, test, and test. And we should have the words test, test, and test going along right here. Perfect. Let's add some paragraphs. So where it says test, I'm going to say P, and I'll type the word lorem for lorem ipsum. And there's our first paragraph right there. And in the second one, we'll type the word P for paragraph. And we'll say lorem for this one. And the third time should be a charm. Let's say P for paragraph. And we'll say lorem for lorem ipsum. Drop it in and rock and roll Scooby-Doo. We've got a website going on. Hello World. And let's then make this a little different size so we can double check it. making sure it all goes 100% responsive. Awesome. The last thing to do is actually get this on the web. So let's actually head over to our friends at Netlify. No, I am not sponsored by them, but they're just one freaking amazing company. Let's go to login, and I'm going to go to add a new site. Actually, to deploy manually, drag and drop. Here we go. Let's do this. So if I head back to my folders, I'm going to grab this start folder. I'm going to drag and drop this right here. And with amazing power, this is why I love Netlify, we're done. It takes a few minutes to upload. Let's just change this to change our site name. And let's say this one is our full screen landing page. Save. Oh, it's already taken. So I'll say ADWC for designer who codes. Perfect. Full screen landing page, ADWC.netlify.app. Perfect. Check it. And it comes up right away. If you want any help connecting your domain name to Netlify, I've got a video right here, and I have a whole playlist on Bootstrap 5. As always, I'm Hayden Adams with A Designer Who Codes.